Dead by Daylight has been around since 2016 and has grown incredibly due to the asymmetrical nature and licenses of horror's most well-known icons. However, like everything in life, it has its problems, and Dead by Daylight is no exception. Much like any game, it has its bugs, and most times bugs in some games are patched out quickly within reasonable time, or in some cases refined and turned into a feature for a more enjoyable experience for players. This can't be said strongly for DbD, as there would be bugs or even game mechanics that would make the game, as some people have said, annoying and for some frustrating. I'm being generous, of course, with my words. This also goes for the mechanics that, yes, are not supposed to be in the game, but people loved because of the general silliness of it, and sometimes the high skill ceiling that was required to do it, like sky ability, weird but awesome dashes across the map objects with certain killers, and things like the Batum hold tech, things that were fun and unrealistic but were ultimately removed, but yet equally enjoyable. Now, as the Steam Game Awards of 2024 are about to be announced around the corner, Dead by Daylight has asked their community at the start of December for the Labor of Love Award. And what was in return was not some of the most loving feedback. I even asked my own Discord community their thoughts, and they were pretty vocal about it. This came as no surprise for most, and just recently, Otstarva, a respected and most well-known streamer for Dead by Daylight in the community, recently made a post of his thoughts and the reasons for this backlash. Even for a casual player, the impact of the quality of the game can be felt, whether it is bad connections, poor player experience, or buggy matches. This can sour a new player experience. This being said, the game has received some massive updates in the last few years that a lot of the community dreamed of, and with it new players. Although very healthy in the quantity of the game, allowing for more playstyles, perks, and other ways to play, is it able to hold a new casual player for the long term? Does Dead by Daylight deserve the labor of love, or should it go into a more deserving game? After watching Otz's video, I was inspired and wanted to ask this to others, some of my teammates and fellow gamers of Dead by Daylight, both long-term players and newer, what their thoughts are on the topic. So I invite you guys in the comments your thoughts of some of the questions I ask, and hear what the community truly feels about it and if it deserves the vote. I hope you enjoy, and as always, I will see you in the fog. Okay, so now we are into the fun interviewing part of the video. So I am with my teammates Muse and Lights. Say hello, fellas.
Hello, I'm Muse. Hi.
Howdy, howdy. This is Lights.
So Muse, Lights, how about one at a time? You guys tell me about how long you've played the game and really just like, you know, how it got you started.
Well, hello, I'm Muse Magician. I've been playing the game since 2017 with Halloween event where Michael Myers first came out. So we've been around for quite some time with this. I have 4,070 hours in the game, and we enjoy it. We still play it to this day. We're still active with it. We love seeing the new content, new changes, and new directions that the game goes.
Nice. So all the way from Halloween, you've seen a lot of changes then, a lot more than I have. That's for sure. I started up in 2020. That's whew.
I know, right? Like back in the day when
making
Chef
me
used
feel
to have 2 windows.
Yeah, making me feel like a youngins up in here. Jesus Christ. Making me feel like a noob up in here. All right, Lights.
So I'm Lights. I've been playing the game since what killer released before Night?
Skull. No. It was God, what was it? What killer was it?
No, I've been here since around a little. I swear it was before even Skull Merchant.
Oh yeah, because Skull Merchant came out after the Night's release.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for the Night. Very cool stuff. So I'll just say I've been playing since around when Night came out. I've got 700 plus hours in the game. I play both sides of killer and survivor pretty regularly.
Nice. So for a really good standpoint, we have a much newer player, if you don't mind me saying, Lights, and then we have someone who's practically almost a veteran, given that they've been around since the release of the Halloween chapter, which is pretty impressive. Both are very, very impressive too, because it gives us a good insight of what newer players come into Dead by Daylight versus someone who has played the game pretty much since what that would be 20
2016.
2016, yeah. So not too
Way
long
back in
after
the
the
day.
release of the game, yeah. Which is a huge thing, considering that was also Dead by Daylight's first license. So, that being said, though, now we're going to get into the nit and gritty of what this video is about, which is, does Dead by Daylight deserve the Steam Awards Labor of Love? So, the Steam Awards, now, as you guys can see on the screen here, we have, of course, that the developers have asked its community of Dead by Daylight, the Dead by Daylight devs, have asked for the Labor of Love Award, which is basically that the Labor of Love is intended for games that have been around long enough before the autumn sale here of last year, and essentially has seen continuous development. And the last year's winners, of course, ranged from Warframe all the way to Cyberpunk 2077, which is a personally favorite game of mine as well, and it did deserve that Labor of Love award because holy smokes, that game came a long way. But a lot of people were on the fence when the developers made a tweet regarding nominating them for the Steam Awards. Now, you can't vote now as the time of this video, as those votings have closed, but really talking about it is also just equally as important because this also affects the future of the game in the sense of how the community reacts to it. Now, obviously on Twitter, which is already a hodgepodge of negativity, the the comments were, how do we say, not the most supportive. A lot of them were very, well, this game is shit. Or some of them were either a very objective opinion, or some were actually people saying, well, I mean, look at the progress that it has. I wanted to talk about what really deserves the Labor of Love as opposed for Dead by Daylight for 2024. Will it get it? We won't know, so we won't even know who will get the award at the end of this year. That being said, let's hop right into some of the questions here for the Labor of Love category. So, with the Labor of Love category intended for games that have been around long enough and have seen a lot of development love, at least for a year or so, being that Dead by Daylight has been around basically for 8 years running and seen a lot of patches. I mean, we are counting a hodgepodge of patches that have come out over the 8 years. Muse, you've seen practically almost all of them, basically. And
I've seen this game transform. It's come quite a long ways, you know?
It has, and doing a lot of homework and research, it is seen a massive amount of changes, both small, both big, both quite jaw-dropping if you think about it, because a multiplayer game that stays in its niche is quite impressive and running for 8 years, almost 9 now as we come to the close of 2024. But with the release and the ask of DbD asking for nomination for Labor of Love, given these recent updates and also the patches, as well as some approaches that the company also has done in recent years, we'll get into that later. This being the business side, of course. Given that the updates and recent patches, as well as the approaches, and the expansions and license grabs, does it still give the community an okay for nominating Dead by Daylight or not, would you say? How you guys can go whenever you want on that question.
Oh, absolutely, they deserve the nomination for that. Like, especially being a veteran player who's watched this game go from like Halloween 2016 and watch it progress and grow from licensing content, original content, graphics updates, UI updates, updates to killers and survivors, their looks, their animations. Like, I just think how this game has grown and progressed in its category, asymmetrical horror. 100%, I just think they deserve the Labor of Love.
Okay. Lights, what are your takes on that?
I mean, from an emotional standpoint or like a community standpoint, I would say no. But when you really look at it from like how the criteria is for the award and how simple that criteria can be or is, they technically are deserving of the award. They're deserving of some votes for sure. And I think definitely in the more recent years, since Skull Merchant, of course, that they've done a lot of changes that have been for the better. And I think that it is important to consider the company itself, but this is the game that is being nominated, not necessarily the company for the award Labor of Love.
Okay.
Some of my thoughts on that.
Okay. So, what are some thoughts that the both of you, with these statements, could definitely say regarding that, especially when it comes to these, like as you said, Lights, the community has been is not with it, especially with what has happened over at Behavior Interactive, for that matter, with the layoffs as well. But like you said, this is also specifically about the game. What would you both say as a take on that?
Let's look at the standpoint, like specifically, Labor of Love category is intended for games that have shown developmental love towards the game, and Dead by Daylight has actually done that quite a bit. Games are always going to be buggy; it's going to happen, but you have to see how much you have to put as a whole perspective. Because I do believe the labor, all the layoffs and whatnot, is not exactly tightly directed. It's not linked to what the category is talking about. The category specifically talks about the development of a game and how much love has gone to it. And a lot of love is went to Dead by Daylight. Otherwise, 8 years going and strong would not be this far.
You make a very good point there. You make a good point. Lights, what would you say also on your end about that?
I'd second Muse for the most part. It is unfortunate, like incredibly unfortunate, and I'm about the, what is it, like 95 plus or something like that?
Yes.
Employee layoff over what was probably financial mistakes on their end. But if we're just talking about the award, Muse is definitely right that they do meet the criteria quite well.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that for both of you, you're pretty much on the say of like a development standpoint on the game specifically, as what the topic entails, is that it does deserve a Labor of Love nomination, at least, is what I'm hearing. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, well then that goes into our next question here, because with that in mind, despite the massive licenses that DbD has acquired that have come around in the last 2 years, which are impressive licenses, they're nothing to joke about. These are big licenses. The community actually asked for these licenses many years ago, and some parts of it. Is it really deserved in that sense? Despite all the small parts, we have mechanical issues, we have bugs, certain features that also have been removed that really need to be addressed.
Oh, just on licensings alone, 100%. Like, you have to look at this big picture. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Stranger Things, separate individual people like Lara Croft, Nicolas Cage. Like, even the RE chapter is a great example, because there's a ton of new mechanics with Nemesis. They brought in Flashbang, different characters, all those things are going to bring bugs, but they work on the bugs. And one of the cool things they've done recently is they've done this kill switch feature, where if something is really affecting the game to a point where it's going to affect the core mechanics of the game and you can't really do anything about it, they'll kill switch and work on a solution with it. Like, even with Stranger Things, the upside down mechanic, like Hawkins National Laboratory, there's a lot of huge new things that will come with bugs, but it's not like they're ignored. It's not like it takes forever to get rid of them or fix them. They do look into it and they try to find solution for these things.
Okay. And that can be said about especially this year's recent patch with the Houndmaster that came out, and the other 2 patches that followed with it. That being said, too, Lights, what is also your take on this?
I will say, these licenses have been, like Mew said, huge. We have FNAF coming next year.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the biggest and most asked for licenses that the community's been wanting for a very long time. I do think, though, that they need to, this is more of a personal opinion, of course. I do think and it's not quite related, but I do think they need to slow down on the licenses, because right now we have so many smaller bugs right now, and bug mechanics, and the dog Houndmaster was mentioned. Her dog AI needs fixed up.
Yes.
or I guess not really fixed up. It needs optimized. It needs to be a little worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they just gave themselves more time between licenses, they could have had stuff like Skull Merchant and Houndmaster more flushed out. Excuse me. So I do think, yes, these licenses have been huge, and they are incredibly deserving for being here so long, of like finally getting these licenses, because I'm sure they've probably been asking for them for a while.
Yes.
You know, behind the scenes. But I do think that the small parts, like you said, really do need to be put into consideration when it comes to the labor of Love Award.
Okay, that's a good point too, especially with the smaller mechanics. Even that long time and even newer players really start to catch on. One specific one that comes to mind, and that we all three of us had unfortunately been a part of recently, and that's still, it is kind of going around. I don't know if people who would watch this have seen this yet, but there is also a bug that is also regarded the Doctor as of recently as well. When they hit tier 3, there's a bug that causes a survivor to actually not be able to do any interactions, which is a pretty interesting and serious bug if you think about it. Lights also plays Doctor almost exclusively. They're really good at Doctor, and that's a pretty serious bug. So what would you two both say about, really paying attention to those small parts, and yes, these licenses and these chapters have been huge, but with these small parts now, the mechanics, bugs, features that really need to be addressed, how would you guys follow up with this before we go on to the next question?
Honestly, I don't know why Doctor has not been kill switched, because I don't have a pinpoint on exactly what causes this bug to happen. Because in my experience, I was just running, and then Ace tried to sandbag me with the Doctor, hit tier 3 through the shock, threw the pallet down and ran, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, I can't repair, I can't heal, I can't save, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't break out of madness. It's like, that is completely game altering. And the fact that I guess it's not gotten enough attention or something, that he's not been kill switched, because they need to find a fix for that, especially if it affects the game that much. Something needs to really be done about that,
Right. Lights, what about your take on that?
I don't know why he hasn't been kill switched yet, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if just not enough people are reporting it yet. He's not a commonly played killer, and so when it does happen, because it's still a chance that it doesn't. So when people go against Doctor, it might not happen, but more often than not, it does. And if you're playing Doctor, like I did the one time, I didn't even notice till halfway through a game that I had bugged one of the players. I noticed that she was bugged, and I felt so terrible because I didn't want to exploit this. And honestly, that's why I'm taking a break from Doctor right now, because playing Survivor, I noticed an influx, and I mean a fairly big influx compared to before, of Doctors playing Dead by Daylight right now. And I think it's just a bunch of people that want to exploit and get easy games with the Doctor, because if this works, if that bug happens, you essentially only have 3 people on generators.
Right.
Yeah, the person who's stuck in tier 3 can throw pallets, can kite, but why would the Doctor chase you if you can't progress the objectives of the game? So it's a really groundbreaking bug, and that's and I'm surprised that it has not been kill switched. And it also brings to mind, as from the killer side of things, that flashbangs and firecrackers have also not been kill switched, and they still do not make a noise as of right now when they are dropped. And I feel like a lot of survivors have been exploiting that because it makes for easy save, it makes for good content, and I've definitely gotten frustrated with it. And I know newer killers, newer players on killers, or just not as patient with the game, are probably definitely frustrated with why that keeps happening. And I feel like that's also not groundbreaking, but it definitely is a bug that's been around for a while that has yet to be fixed.
So
it should be.
Okay, so as like a newer player, let's say like let's wind you back a couple of years, like I'm sorry, a couple of hours, I should say, in Dead by Daylight. And let's be honest, the community of Dead by Daylight is not shy to exploiting a bug. let's be honest here.
We know that.
Yes, so I think we can all kind of agree that would actually contribute. And if I pull up some of the Nightlight status here, which is mostly PC, but still pretty high. Right now, the pick rate on Doctor is at a 2.60 with a kill rate of almost approaching the 60% mark. It's at a 58.28, which is still pretty close to that mark, but the pick rate is interesting in the sense that it's, I guess you could say it's almost increased, if you will, which is pretty interesting to say the least. And the kill rate is starting to actually go up by looking at this pick rate since patch. Now, we do know of the bug, and honestly, kudos to you for not exploiting that bug. Honestly, that's a serious thing. But we can actually see that in the recent numbers here that are coming in, with a kill rate that's just surpassing over the 60% mark, and then we have a pick rate which, yes, has gone on the downslope, but overall has been relatively stable. But that might change with this bug, like you said.
And another thing to consider, as at least while we were recording this, the bugs, at least I've only noticed it in the past week-ish. So it's still a fairly new bug, so we still might have a chance to see it uptick genuinely.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I think that goes for, I think that's what happened with, a lot of the previous killers that were kill switched. People noticed it, and then as it started getting popularity, well, I should say awareness, they kill switch the killer. So we'll probably see that in the next couple of months, no doubt, considering, like as Muse had said before, the kill switch mechanic has been pretty much on top of a lot of killers that needed to be kill switched, ranging from Wesker to Skull Merchant. I think the Knight also got a kill switch too, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, he did.
Yeah, so that's
Freddy did. It's just there needs
Freddy
to be
too,
visibility. Yeah. Like, people need to start speaking up about this, putting it out there, putting it in the forums, reporting it. Like,
yes, and
not in a sense of reporting someone for using it, more or less that this is a continuous issue that needs to be addressed.
Exactly. And that goes into our next one, which is the patches. And we're going to get into our next question here is that given the length of long dragged out patches over these many years that needed to be made into the game, like we have patches that, apparently were, in some people's opinions, are long overdue. We have like the HUD updates, we have, quality of life improvements, and then of course things that addressed a lot of pretty important bugs. But that being said, though, as I go back to the question, is it really beneficial for the game to have the labor of love when it takes them almost years to address certain bugs or mechanics that were in the game since some chapter releases, like say 5-6 years ago? I mean, we had of course we had the dead hard, which basically made you completely invulnerable when you used it. For a good amount of months, we also had what was it, decisive strike be a very interesting perk that has gotten a load amount of changes since then. Of course, it's a much better spot now, and people still use it quite effectively. Like there's no problem with that. It's a very good anti-tunnel perk. But those are some mechanical features. But with how long it took these patches to be patched out, is it really beneficial, and was it worth it with the labor of love being considered in mind, even though some of these patches or some of these chapters and these releases, they may have come out so many years ago, but it took them so long to get these patches dragged out with the amount of years and sometimes unreasonable months, as some people would say. What would your guys' takes be on that?
Well, honestly, like, you have to understand from a developer standpoint, probably in the chair mind, okay, so I had this, we want to do changes to decisive strike. We have this dead hard change that they need me to work on this too. But, oh wait, I have to work on this new item for this new chapter, this new cosmetic for this. I need to test this to make sure this works out. I have to test that dead hard change, I have to test the decisive change, I have to work on this patch, I have to work on this. You can't, they're continuously multitasking several projects at one time that need changes, they need revisions, and they need testing. So if something takes that long, it takes that long for a reason.
Would you say that also applies to like when a new killer versus an old killer gets developed?
I would say there's probably a lot more priority on a newer killer versus older. Older, they can take a little bit more time and observe any bug or glitch or exploit that needs to be changed with them to
Mm.
see if it's gonna get worse or if it's gonna stay the same, so they can develop that on the side while pushing out a patch for a newer killer to just kind of help balance that out since it's new to the game,
Mm.
depending on the severity of what's happening with it.
Right, right, right. And Lights, what would you say regarding that then? You not only being a newer player to the game, but also you playing a killer that has actually been out for quite a many of years, has a really fun impact and a good impact. I would say, in my opinion, of course, I think the Doctor chapter with Feng Min and the Spark of Madness. How would you say to that? You know.
Madness has been out a very long time, and Doctor has relatively stayed the same until like, what was it, last year? He finally got a slight rework.
Yes,
I'll
yeah,
say.
he got a nice quality of life change, and looking back on it, he did have his power was extremely weak, from what I understood. Looking back on it, it was extremely weak. So his actual power got a rework not too long after his initial release, so that he could actually stop people at pallets and whatnot and become an anti-loop killer. Because at first, all he could do was put people in madness. That was it. There was not really a lot going on. So he had come a ways from that. So for your standpoint, how would you then address, the long set out patches and whatnot? You being not only a newer player, but somebody who's playing a killer that is gotten actually a little bit of tweaks and whatnot.
Yeah, I will say the Doctor tweaks have been definitely some of my favorite out of all killer updates. It's not too much, but it is enough to really make him feel like he can do some damage. Because before this most recent update to him, he slowed down to like a snail speed when he was charging up his static blast. And if you're not like, and that would really like, people would just have to run away from you if they saw you do that, and you might not hit them. Because of the distance you're trying to get them with it, and maybe someone else. Now that he has more speed with the static blast, it's just perfect.
Okay.
But there are some killers that I still think need more attention. But like Muse said, they're older. They probably think, people still play this killer, so why change anything?
Like, it's not on a priority list. It's not game altering. It's not that affecting. So like another great example of this would be if anyone back in there remembers the Legion's moonwalk exploit.
Yes, I researched that. That was a horrible mechanic problem. A horrible one.
Back in the day, they didn't have the type of team they have nowadays to address that type of issue. So it's like, okay, we're aware of this. It happens. It's very much affects the game. It's very unfair. So the solution to them is, okay, we're going to work on this. So if anyone who's found using, reported, and there's footage of the person using the exploit, yes, you're going to get permaban from the game.
Really? They
want to encourage, yes, permanent ban, because it's exploit and you're intentionally doing it. So it's like, we have to get people to stop doing this so we can work on a fix really quick, which that I would understand has a higher level of priority versus some trapper bug that happens, but it doesn't stop progression of the game, and it's not as a severe level as a moonwalk exploit.
Right. That you make a very good point on that, especially when it comes to something that, like as you said, it literally is an exploit that allows you to get basically free downs continuously and allows for survivors to have no counterplay, because what is a survivor supposed to do in that scenario? Or even a player who's supposed to do in that scenario. And of course, Legion is in a much better spot. People have no problem with Legions these days, and they're just as counterable as they've always been, but also playable as they've always been too, as opposed to like if you were to be competitive. But so that pretty much that's I did not know that about that they made that actually a bannable exploit. I do know that they were working on that extremely quickly because of what that exploit could do. So yeah, that's a pretty important note to put in mind, actually, especially in people's minds, is that that it supports what you had said before, and what Lights has also supported in your statement is that a newer killer is going to get more addressed to the matters more frequently than versus an old killer that has been out for quite some time. Yeah, there are problems, but it's not as severe as what, like what you said. If Legion was, let's say Legion was released today and it had that exploit in it, that's going to get more focused than Trapper.
Oh, that Legion would be immediately kill switched, I would say, within a day or two of that happening.
If he was
The
released
community
today.
would blow up.
Okay. And then now that goes right into for what the community, when the community gets together and they would shout something like that, because that would be very much addressed. And with these new bugs and everything, of course, the community always makes their voice known on that. But now we also have little things to talk about, is that people have also said that what also affects their opinion in the labor of love is that does it really deserve labor of love due to the massive employment layoff that happened over at Behavior Interactive and coding issues, or would that even be relative to the nomination in this place? And unfortunately, what's very unfortunate is that in the gaming industry, and this also goes for a lot of other entertainment industries in general too, with like film and whatnot, layoffs are unfortunately a very common occurrence and do happen, and it's a horrible thing. So would you guys say is that sort of issue really even relative to the nomination in the first place, would you say? How would you both approach that?
See, I have to sit here and think about it, because when there's trying to associate the layoffs that they had done, which was 95 individuals across multiple departments in the main office in Montreal for Behavior Interactive.
Yes, and that's stated
70 of them specifically in the Montreal office, and then at this January 2023, 45 individuals from its Montreal, they're going a different direction. They're doing these layoffs, but like, you have to understand, people are connecting that to development in association with devs or the creations of the game. So they're tying this to Dead by Daylight, which you can't really do that because it doesn't specifically say for the department of Dead by Daylight. The Montreal office is the main building for this company, but it's also tied to connections of different video games, newly acquired studios and businesses. Like, who says it's specifically Dead by Daylight?
Right.
Like, they acquired Fly Studio in Montreal in 2023. They got Sock Monkey Studios, Code Glue. There's Midwinter Entertainment. So these are like UK, the United States, different countries. So they could be sizing down in their main branch. And you may have gotten laid off, but also they could have opened opportunities to newer and different things in different directions.
And what would be like a good example, would you say, of some of that sort of thing happening?
So they could say, hey, maybe we're going to work on this new game or this new project, and this studio that we've acquired, they have openings, we're going to size down. So even though we're laying you off, we would like to present you an opportunity to go to this particular place, move there if you want to, and have the same, if not better, position in the same industry.
Right.
Just because behavior sizing down doesn't mean there's more or different opportunities for you to go somewhere else.
Okay, and so you would say that would actually not be in association to the labor of love in Dead by Daylight specifically, yes?
No. Yeah, because the labor of love specifically talks about a development of a game for more than a year. How do you feel about the development of the game? Which some could argue, oh, well, the layoffs have all to do with that. Well, not really, because they did layoffs due to a change in their marketing conditions and other branches inside of Behavior's main office in Montreal. Maybe some people came from the Dead by Daylight branch. Who knows? You have Dead by Daylight Mobile. Several other games they're working on. It's, you can't really say for sure, but they're associating all the layoffs with the video game.
Yes, and that's been a very common thing between community developers and unfortunately the behavior as a whole as well. Lights, what do you want to say on this question?
I will say, like to put it in perspective, when people hear labor of love, they probably take into consideration more than what the award is about. Like, I did research when you talked about it, because I was like, I don't really know what the labor of love award is on Steam.
Right.
And that's when I found out that it really is just 2 criteria and nothing more, nothing less, which is why technically Dead by Daylight is very deserving of the award. But to put into like perspective of someone who hasn't looked it up or doesn't know that it's just those two criteria, they might think it has to do with more than just the game, that it's behavior themselves asking for a labor of love award, and then in which case they rope in a lot of factors like the layoffs, the bad spending habits, the games that they kind of gave up on, or that flunked, that didn't do
Peace,
so
Death Garden.
Literally,
yeah, that's
is
a
what I
good
was thinking
example.
of.
That's a very good example. And then we also have two other games that also come to mind, which was it was their not their newest game of casting of Frank Stone, but it was another game that was actually made by Behavior, and it was I believe it was some sort of dystopian build your base kind of game. I can't remember what it was called. But that one also unfortunately did not succeed to the levels that they hoped for. It's also another good example. Can't remember what it was called.
But that's what I imagine, and I can emphasize with the community on, is that they probably think the labor of love means a lot more than just developmental love. They probably think it could mean like community love, to have the devs listen to us. Not really, not all the time. They could listen more or listen better, but it's like that's up to someone's opinion at that point if they're doing well in that regard. Because people want many different things, and you can't expect a company to do all those different things, which is totally understandable, you know?
Okay, and then for you personally, as not only just a consumer of the product, but also not even just as a newer player, but what would you want to see personally? And then this also goes for you too as well, Muse. So what would you like to see then that would be essentially?
Oh, so many things.
So many things. We'll keep it light. You don't have to overthink it. Just like a couple of things either off the top of your head or something that really just kind of sticks with you.
Okay, yeah. Well, for perspective, I'm a console player. I didn't mention it at the start. I am only a console player as of right now. Yep. And one thing I've wanted for the longest time for console players is to be able to change the saturation on the game, change the brightness, to really do anything for accessibility when it comes to how dark the game is. I can't download mods to add filters to make my game better for my viewing, you know? And that gives me a disadvantage, not only as primarily as a survivor, but if I'm a killer and people bring those like dark colored cosmetics that are blend in really well, they're used in comp for a reason.
Yeah,
I might not see them, genuinely, because my game footage is so dark, and I think that really needs to be addressed, and it would be such a nice quality of life change for all console players, genuinely, is to just give you a slide bar on how you want your game to look.
Right. And Muse, how would you also approach that as well? Like you as an individual would also like to see. Because we've addressed the overall picture, but I also want to see what your guys' personal takes are on it as well. Is why that's why I'm asking this follow-up before we move on to the next one.
I think they need to like kind of slow down on a lot of new games and media they're trying to put out, and take them more time to focus on their top game that Behavior has gotten a lot of, has succeeded a lot with, which is Dead by Daylight.
Yes.
And then do a lot more market research on the gaming industry and finding what people are really wanting to get into, particularly because I feel like personally, like with Lights, about the accessibility and the options and change is something they can definitely do. But I want to see this company grow more by doing a lot more time to put effort into fixing more of the known harder issues of Dead by Daylight, at the same time actually putting out games that are going to continue to do the same, if not better, than Dead by Daylight itself.
So you're saying that you want Behavior to put a little bit more money into their I'm just going to say their cash cow, which is Dead by Daylight, in order to not only improve onto Dead by Daylight and that specific team that is in charge of Dead by Daylight, but also allow them to branch out and to make other departments in other games. Yes.
Yes, because
Okay.
like we have the casting of Frank Stone, right?
Yes,
From
which
the
was a
world of Dead by
partnership, yeah.
Daylight. That game did fantastic, and it's a really good genre they chose because you have like all the other types of like what was it, the Quarry and like I don't know that specific type of story interactive horror, which did fantastic
Yes.
and casting did great. But like you have Meet Your Maker, the whole base building thing,
Oh, that's
mediocre, not really that popular. Who cared? Death Garden died. What the Fog? Fun little game. No really time spent on it anymore because it is what it is. Hooked on You.
never played.
People loved it for the content creation, a dating sim, but
Yeah.
meh. That's not going any farther.
Yeah.
And of course, the famous Dead by Daylight Mobile, which
Yes.
does surprisingly well. It's fantastic, but I don't see that game particularly going any farther than it can be because it's a derivative of the main game.
And it's
So there's
also a
things in the
mobile
main game that's it's mobile. So there's only so much you can do with the mobile version, but I'm fantastic to see that it's doing really well.
Yeah, and
And a
it's
lot of
also
mentions that
inspired
people don't know about, Islands of Insight, Flippin' Misfits, Game of Thrones Beyond the Wall, Jurassic Primal Ops, other projects this company specifically has worked on, developed, or created, which is cool. And they have partner games as well, but like they need to put more time into their main project, their main game, get it a lot more fixed up, get it more focused on, and then do some market research onto another game that they could possibly create, maybe with inspiration from Dead by Daylight or completely fresh with the same aspects and ideas.
And that's coming from you personally as a personal consumer that you'd like to see. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And that's really, geez, you guys are practically on the same tracks. What the hell? It's kind of crazy, but you both make a really, really solid point. So you wanted to be able to see at least, outside of Dead by Daylight, you guys want to see at least behavior branch out into more than just Dead by Daylight. You want it to actually see more than just one successful game, which has been their big crux. And now you guys want to see other things be improved, and then more investment into less of the licensings. But that being said, now we get into our actual next question, which is, of course, by a lot of the general sense that we know of at Behavior, has been really focused, as you guys have said, on the big ticket items for the game, which leaves a lot of the smaller but more necessary things, like, as you said, like, some general improvements for like console players, some filter settings and whatnot for the game's health, and are necessary for it to be left behind. What could be said, and what would it be? Would it be the development team being a little negligent on it, or would you say that it's maybe even a higher up decision, making it harder for these changes to be pushed into the game, and the development team is therefore having to push with the quantity rather than the quality of the game?
Ooh, I think Muse put this, or said this really well earlier. But I do truly believe that, and like I said even before what Muse said, I think they need more time between licenses to not only give themselves breathing room, but to help maybe lessen the amount of bugs, or even just add more content if they think they can, But as Muse said earlier, they have so many projects that they're doing that they might see these things, but just not have the time for it, because other things take more priority, and the person who sets the priority is the higher ups. The developers are literally there for their paycheck, and their paycheck is linked to what those people want them to do, want to set their priorities on. So that's kind of like, that's my stance on it. I really do think Muse put it really well earlier.
Okay. Oh, but I've got a lot to say about this one.
Oh boy. Okay, we got ourselves a good story time. Let's hear it, Moose. So, what would be your push on it then?
So, we'll start at the part that was like the first part of this, talking about like devs being lazy. Well, it's the thing about us OG veterans when it comes to this game. Back in the day, like, this company is huge now, but back in the day, the main game developers, creative directors, and maybe a dev or two, depending who was available, actually did live streams on Twitch where they sat there and talked about recent events, cool artwork, what we're working on, bugs we're looking at, what can you expect, maybe a teaser. They were very transparent with their community. They were very open and talkative about things they're trying to look at, future plans, content, what they want to see, asking questions, being very interactive. And we don't do much of that now, but periodically, we anniversary event, we get a lot of clarity on the game, stats, and people feel what's going to come up next. End of year videos about one-on-one interviews with the devs or community manager, an arts worker, someone with sales, giving their point of view on the game, how they feel about it, their passion. Because the devs definitely aren't lazy. Devs aren't there for a paycheck. The devs working on the game are actually there and have passion for the game. So if they didn't have that, there'd be no Dungeons and Dragons DLC. There would definitely be no Stranger Things, no Resident Evil, no Alien, no Chucky, no Castlevania. Because if they didn't care, why do they care about making that stuff as good as it is? Fantastic DLC, fantastic content. Devs are not being lazy. They just have a lot on their plate. And they have to make new content work with old content and old content work with new. Because it's always going to be a bug and something's always getting affected with it. Right. So definitely the devs are not being lazy. At the same time, I do feel like people like Matthew Cote and several other individuals on the top in this have to give decisions on content they want to focus on, what needs to be pushed, bounce off ideas of things they're looking forward to see if it works. So there's a little bit on both sides, but I definitely 100% do not feel there's lazy and there's no negligence from the higher ups, honestly.
Okay.
Another good example, for any of my Dragula fans out there, Blade Brothers Dragula, episode 9 was a Dead by Daylight collaboration episode. Contestants had to, I know it was so good. I highly recommend everyone watch it because it's just insane the detail they put into these outfits. Contestants need to make an original urban myth or legend outfit for a upcoming DLC for the game next year, and urban myths and legends, which is going to be, I'm assuming, a part with the Belay Brothers collaboration, because it was supposed to come out in fall, but it's not here yet, which means maybe it's not ready, maybe they don't want to push it out yet, maybe do it at the same time, or maybe earlier next year, for example.
Okay.
And people have to understand that these competitions, you see it now in October, but they're filmed like 6 months in advance. So the behavior already knows who won, who gets the outfit, and begin development on the particular prize for this challenge and the Belay Brothers.
Right.
So they have time to develop it, test it for bugs, do it again, polish it up, and they still have more time to do this. So one of the contestants was given a ultimate prize of having their specific outfit for the challenge immortalized in the game as a DLC outfit. So, they have all these particular new things, new DLC patches, stuff they work on, but they have content from they already know about 6 months ago that they're still working on developing and finalizing and making sure it also is interactable with the game currently. Because if there's a new bug, they'll work on it, but they're putting time into these things. They can't just whip it all out, get it done on point, So I honestly feel they're not trying to push out quantity, but they can, because projects are being done months and months and months in advance. And if something happens with it, like new cosmetics, new outfits, new skins, new, sorry, had a brain fire for a moment. Quality of life updates, stuff they've been working on, they've tested, and it's good to go. But if it has a bug, they can add it to the list and they can work on a current fix for it while the game is still operating and while they're still trying to push out new things. So I'm assuming there's probably sets of devs that have specific things they work on for bug fixes and whatnot, patching, things that take a while to make versus ones that are being more creative and working with the artists.
Right. And would you feel like there would need to be some sort of a change in those areas, or at least a more efficient way of doing said projects? Would you feel like that also needs to be changed? And this also goes for you too, Lights. This follow-up is, of course, you guys can say whatever you want. This is completely unbiased. would you say that certain things need to be probably put into under consideration in terms of efficiency now that the game is so much bigger than it used to?
Honestly, I personally feel that it's an okay state right now, because as you can tell, every new chapter, 1 to 2 weeks, they push out some kind of hotfix. Something else is still going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's another hotfix that goes out for it. People could argue flashbangs and firecrackers being silent for, I don't know, a month or two, I guess.
Yes,
and it's
Yeah.
still
been
an
about a month.
underlying issue.
Yeah.
But like, is it that it's in competitive scene? Yes. I have to disable it. It's an item that you can use. Public, is it really that big of an issue?
Not really.
Kinda. You can't hear it, but is it really that game altering? No, not really.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Right.
That is a good point in there. Lights, what about yours? What about your thoughts on that?
I have to agree. It's in an okay enough.
Mm-hmm.
They're in an okay enough spot. I mean, I would like I said, or like I've repeated once or twice. I would still like for them to like take more time to be more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think even just like an extra 2 months per se you can fix a lot, or you can debate like if you fixed everything, double, triple check your boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll also give maybe more breathing room to the developers as well. But that's just that is totally just my opinion.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to hear, especially coming from such two sides of experience as well with this game. That's really important, especially when it comes to you guys as consumers of the game and avid players, including myself, of the game. And with all of this being said, regarding, would like some more efficiency over, the games, being in a better spot and of course priority. This being said, what do you think needs to happen to have this nomination to be really accepted by the community then? What would need to happen in order for this nomination to be more generally, I guess you could say, better accepted by the community in the first place?
Oh, 100%, I would have to say is definitely a lot more, like the development team behind the game and its company doing a lot more with the game itself versus pumping content into it. So there's they need to spend more time putting efficiency into a lot of quality of life changes and the base game mechanics that may have some bugs or glitches.
So back at
keep a lot more focus on that versus them pushing out all this Bone Chill stuff. And before that, we pushed out this collection. Oh, we just pushed out this collection. Here's Castlevania. Here's another Castlevania for this collection. Like, it's already done. It's already pushed out there.
Right.
But maybe we can slow down a little bit on a month or two on some kind of content and just do one fat quality of life update. So then do a post patch to see if anything happens with that.
So going back to what Lights had stated earlier, as them slowing down in the sense of development of the game wise, is what you're saying, yes? Okay, that's
like for example, let's slap on the 2v8 mode with this and this. Well, we for like a month or a month time for say to give them a month's time to put more focus onto the core values of the game. While we still have the infamous 2v8, which has done fantastic, and people still play the hell out of it, even already coming back the second time. Even Chaos Shuffle is fantastic. It threw such a wrench into the game itself and changed up like a lot of the meta and changed up the way things are done with perks that you normally wouldn't use. And turns out, wow, I really like this perk with this and this combination. Let's try this in real games now,
Right, and that already has shown, actually, especially after the last two Chaos Shuffles. We saw a little bit of different perks being used, at least in public matches, until you start getting really up there in the MMR system, in which case it comes back to, I would say, a DbD original. What about you, Lights? What for this? What would you say, with all this being said, from what you have said as well, is what would need to happen for this nomination to be more accepted by the community, and what would need to happen in order for it to be nominated in the first place? I'm basically
I
just
think
asking the question.
yeah, I mean it's been a couple of seconds.
Hmm.
We love Muse's passionate rants.
Yes.
I guess, yeah, in my opinion,
Mm.
probably. I mean, I want to say for it to be better accepted, the obvious answer is, like, to have it better accepted by the community, to work with the community more. But that's for a community so large, and not only that, kind of really topsy-turvy on being nice and toxic all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of unrealistic that even if they did work with the community more, that I think it would just bring more problems than help or answers. I think what they need to do to be more accepted is, more quality of life changes that have been asked for a long time, especially for their console players. Like, it is primarily PC, and I think they do update things with PC more in mind than the other platforms. And I think if they just, like Mew said, did the quality of life changes, especially, in my opinion, especially for consoles, and
I don't
honestly,
agree with like on this community thing, like 100%. I think would be really cool, like at least once or twice a month, to go back to do those Twitch live streams. Bring
yeah,
like a dev and like Matthew Cote, maybe an artist or someone, and kind of like go over their plans and what they're thinking about addressing. Like, hey, we're aware of these issues, we're gonna work on them. Like a little more communication with the community will definitely help out a lot, specifically with this type of reward, so they know that we're not just sitting behind forums and Discord posts and submission tickets. Like, they're actually being transparent with us live on a streaming service and talking about things they're doing. Like, give us. It's not all just Reddit and stuff. It's not all just DbD leaks.
Right.
It's actually good to mention that next too. And live stream, like Minecraft does it. Smaller indie like Baldur's does it as well. Has occasional live streams where they're talking about their next biggest update, so you know what's coming, even though it might be a whole year until that update comes out. And I think that that's really important, especially in this day and age where video games are only getting better and look better, but also come with different and more unique bugs. I think it's really important to have that transparency with your community, because I honestly think it also helps the community a little bit not see the company as like this robot or like this unfeeling thing. Like, these are people that are doing this, and this for your enjoyment.
Right. And that's what their job is too, is to do that.
I don't think a lot of people are not thinking about the fact that we have public test betas, which is PC only at the moment.
Yes.
I don't feel they'll be able to go on console at a point in time, but like, they have PTBs that they leave up for quite some time, 3 or 4 weeks, if not more, somehow, somewhere. And we are seeing that the devs are actually listening to feedback about things that are happening and making changes, and then addressing those changes with a hotfix 1 to 2 weeks later. They're listening to what we're saying about what's happening with these kits, and if there's something that still they feel is a little crazy about what's going on in that PTB or the live patch, they make another adjustment to that as well. Very interactive with the community, making very strong changes that are affecting the game in the good way. And like, a lot of people are just saying, oh, the layoffs and devs are doing crap and they're lazy. Well, I mean, you have to. It's DbD's a huge game, but in retrospect to what the Sweet Bandits were with Deceive Inc., they were very open-minded to feedback about how changes were to the game. But instead of doing this like public test build, if they could, or something more interactive with the community, they more or less used a team they called TAT, which is kind of like a beta testing group that tests changes and new ideas and then kind of implement it forward. And which was smart, to try to get better changes to help improve the life of the game. But the game itself is not free to play. The game became more of a shooter, which was its main genre, and then spy element with less spy elements, so people kind of disagreed to that. And honestly, the TAT group kind of pushed the game to die because their ideas were more centered towards personal versus community. And so, I mean, now the Sweet Bandits are disbanded because they can't push the game any forward because the game is unsuccessful.
Right.
It's still up for 6 months, but when you have a TETT group that kind of kills the game, which had past influence on VHS, if you know that one.
Yes, that it was for those who don't know, VHS was a also another asymmetrical horror, if you will, that a lot of people were kind of, when it was first announced, people thought, oh, this could be a really nice competition to Dead by Daylight, but unfortunately that did not last very long. I think the longest it was on the stove, I guess you could say, cooking was really 1 or 2 months from my own perspective. I don't know about you guys, and it then kind of teetered off, and that also goes into other other asymmetrical games, which was like we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, even though on the PC side of things it kind of started going down this slope, on console, from what I learned, is that it's actually doing okay now. And that also goes for apparently the Ghostbusters game that was released. I played it myself. On PC, wasn't so much of a fun experience, but again, on console, it's doing just okay, from what I'm aware of. And a couple of other ASIMs also. So there are games out there that are besides Dead by Daylight, but Dead by Daylight fills such a niche. That it's, of course, it was the first.
But at the same time, it's the top of its category for a reason.
Exactly.
Like each game is existent, Friday 13th, rest in peace, but not for community or development reasons. TSM is doing, actually, I would say, just fine. They have new game modes, characters. It still has a thriving community. Killer Clowns still play, not as popular. It's got some good names like Elvira in there. It's all right.
Yeah.
VHS died due to them listening to a group of people who influenced the game in a bad way, making killers OP. Deceiving instead, they listened to the same group of people that influenced the game as well. So it's like, what can you do about it? Dead by Daylight is on top and probably will always stay on top until someone develops a asymmetrical horror that can be just as competitive with the same community of Dead by Daylight and provides the same really good experience to do good in their footsteps on making the game a lot better and bigger.
Yes, and I would like to hear Lights' voice on this, because they've been incredibly patient. I'm so sorry about that, Lights. So that is completely on me. But I really do want to hear your takes as well, because remember, everyone here, you can go on a rant. I don't care. Like, start screaming, put up a petition. Please do. Muse has done that incredibly well, and I would love to hear yours as well, because it's very important that everyone here says what's needed to be said. And I'll put my input at the end of this, of course, at the end of this. But the reason why that's why I have you both here is because I want to be able to hear what everyone has to say. So let's hear what you got, Lights. Come on, bring it on.
Oh boy. Well, I will say, it's unfortunate because I was so excited for VHS to come out on console. I remember the day they announced that it's just dead, essentially, and I was so disheartened because I remember people playing it in the beta and it looked like so much fun. Then the same, and I look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'm so glad it's going so strong, because I do eventually want to play that, and I think I would genuinely have a lot of fun with it. And I've heard a lot of good things of the community, how they embrace the community, their viewpoint on how to address the community and how loud it can get has been going very strong, and I think it's incredibly smart of them. Honestly, the only game that I can think of that has been doing incredibly well and is also a asymmetrical horror is the mobile game Identity 5. And there's a lot with Identity 5 that I think
we love for that game.
We love that game. I think there's a lot that they've done that I wish Dead by Daylight would implement, which is crazy to say, because honestly, Identity 5 did a lot of things before Dead by Daylight did, which was character backgrounds, modifiers, different game modes, crossover events that were just
Really?
cosmetic based.
Really? I
They
did
did a
not know
lot
about
of
that.
those before Dead by Daylight did, and it's I definitely think there has been some inspiration, which is crazy because Identity Five has never once owned up to be better than Dead by Daylight. They even like I remember the history of it. Even
Hmm.
they actually went to Dead by Daylight Behavior and asked for permission to even make this game, to even make Identity 5, and they were given the green light, and because of that, I think in turn, over the years, Dead by Daylight has become inspired by what it's become. Um, and there's
Wow.
just a lot I wish Dead by Daylight would implement that Identity 5 has done and mastered, which is keeping game modes, but only at certain times. And the as well as like their killer, their storyline, I think is really inspiring. It's very cool.
Mhm.
Though again, it's a mobile game, so they have a lot more freedom with like the development and all that kind of stuff that something as big as Behavior can't quite do.
Mm.
And they can just shove out that amount of quantity with good quality because it is a simplified aesthetic. It's, you know, also mobile. There's less that goes into the development as per se a console or PC only game.
Mhm.
Which like Muse brought up, like their mobile is doing surprisingly well, and I think it is because it's mobile. There's more freedoms and there's less taxing development.
And that you
Now,
and you would you say that you feel more at ease when it comes to, like, if you were to compare mobile DbD to the current platforms of DbD, that you would say that if things were flipped, would you be playing that kind of Dead by Daylight versus the mobile one then?
I think I would. I
Mm.
think from what I hear about mobile and just my experience of like Identity 5,
Mm.
though still very much both have toxic fan bases, like parts of it have toxic fan bases.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make everybody happy. That's always a thing. That's
Yeah,
a
that's
reality,
a,
especially in the creative
that's a,
process. Especially, somebody's always going to notice that little stray line that you made in your work. Everyone's going. Someone is.
yeah. Someone's unfortunately and realistically, you can't make everyone happy. You can't make everyone your friend. Someone's gonna be upset. It's just a way of life,
Mm-hmm.
and that's especially true for game communities. But I think if Dead by Daylight had more freedoms, like Identity 5, for example, I think that would get them. I think that would honestly put them a lot further, like in popularity, even if they implemented some of the things that Identity 5 has done, which. Again, some things they can't do. I'm not expecting them to do like the whole like room customization thing, but like the separate game mode. I know they're making more game modes, but it would be nice for them to keep some
Mm-hmm.
as like around the clock kind of thing. Just you can only play it at certain times in the day, like Identity 5 does. That way they still get regular players in ranked, in casual, and not only in the game modes. Or the other game modes,
Mm-hmm.
which speaking of ranked, I will always probably say this. I wish Dead by Daylight had a ranked mode.
Really?
Yeah, I know it will not keep what we call the sweats
Yeah.
out of casual play,
Yeah.
but I think it would help. And in the way Identity 5 addresses ranked versus casual, because it is not the same game,
Mm-hmm.
actually. Like they are able to deviate ranked and casual by subtracting a few factors that would be in casual and taking it away from ranked. So like you can't bring I think it's like you can't bring the same survivor, you don't know what map you're going to, and you don't you also get like a special emblem saying your rank, much like much like Dead by Daylight has, which was like your like iridescent 3, but people don't get to see that. They don't see what essential rank you are in Dead by Daylight, but they could in Identity 5, and you could find a bit of peace with that. And Killer, or Identity 5 would be Hunter, would know then what they're going up against. Kind of like how the Prestiges worked, though Prestige was fairly different than what would be considered a rank.
Yes, in the long grind that it is in Dead by Daylight. Yes, it would.
You can prestige every survivor or like 3 survivors, and it says nothing about your skill level in the game.
Yeah, and that is very much, that is greatly said in this video game, where the grind is incredibly long, and then, you know, it doesn't mean that you're good at the game, just means that you played that specific character a lot. But so then overall, with everything being said, for both of you, on your statement, would you say that it deserves a nomination for Labor of Love? Dead by Daylight deserves a Labor of Love, or does it not? What would be your both's takes on that as like a closing thing?
Oh, 100%. I would say yes. Dead by Daylight deserves a labor of love, especially with someone who's been around for a very long time in this game, as we've already previously said.
Right.
I looked at it at the big picture to see where it came from and what it is now today.
Right.
And minus the bugs that have been in there for years, minus what's happening, glitches, how they handle these situations, this game has gone beyond and above to bring very nice content, really cool game modes, things people have been asking for within the community, Resident Evil being one of the biggest ones.
Yes.
They've been asking years for Resident Evil, Silent Hill, these big titles, and when it finally happens, people rejoice because it's something they've always wanted, because it fits the core element, even though it's a different type of survival.
Yes.
It shows that this company is listening to its community and trying to bring in really cool new aspects to the game. Sure, it's not older style or newer to this, and a lot of the content comes from current games of versions of the games.
Right.
I feel like they're doing their best to really keep this game afloat with fresh content, interesting DLCs, different game modes, cosmetics, even though it's all going to bring an issue or two, and they try their best to get it fixed. Sometimes some things just get put on a back burner because it's not that serious enough to make you want to not play the game, you know?
Right. What about your take, Lights?
Of course, I think, yes, big picture, they definitely deserve it. Though on a more emotional aspect, I'd be more likely to give the vote to someone else that may be more deserving, like a different game that might be more deserving, that has I'll say like a better history, but also just a better communication with the community and their development and stuff like that. Like, I think Baldur's Gate already won Labor of Love, or am I thinking of a different one? But like, for example, I would be more willing to give it to Baldur's Gate, that has a better communication with the community and is very passionate about what their updates are about, and they're about to release another update that's huge. It's what the community has been asking for, as well as, you know, more bug fixes that have been there for a long time. And I think, like, having played both now, and I'm still trying to get into Baldur's Gate, I think I'd probably give my vote to, for example, Baldur's Gate for their better communication, Baldur's being out, and it also meets the criteria. At that point, it's more of like, you're just basing it off opinion. But yeah, I think Dead by Daylight's definitely deserving, but so are a lot of other games that I would probably give my vote to instead.
Wow, that's okay. So we have a really good take on both sides of it, and honestly, you know, you guys got me on offensive, even what to make it decide if I was voting for it. When all is said and done, though, like that, knowing these points, I think this will help people kind of really look at the development of Dead by Daylight in a better retrospective and separate company from the development team in Dead by Daylight. So Dead by Daylight is more of like, this is the game, but then there's the company as well. That I hope people will kind of understand a little bit better, or at least know about a little bit better, and then looking at the game in a bigger retrospective, whether they're a new player or a veteran player, will be able to kind of make a more sure decision. And honestly, you know, and coming from someone who started up in 2020, I started playing when Blight was released, so I got to experience when his POV camera was in the grass. Yeah, that was a fun time. I would definitely, I'd be more on the side of, I would be more with Lights in the sense of I would give it to probably a game that would have in the more, especially in the more recent years, a little more communication of development with their community to develop a better rapport with their community. I would definitely say that would also help improve their chances of nomination in the first place. I feel like that is a huge thing with that. So I would definitely probably give my labor of love to someone else this year. And that would be my take. But for also Muse's take, Muse is also in the sense of right of like how far the game has come over the last 8 years. I mean, we had a day when killers had to dribble to get a survivor on the freaking hook. We had a day where Skull Merchant was a thing. Not even gonna get into that, but they have been listening in the sense of what we've wanted for licenses, as well as quality of life improvements. A HUD update has been more than welcomed in Dead by Daylight. It has been a blessing in disguise. There are some plays in the game that I haven't even been able to make, or decisions, without not knowing what my other teammates are doing in solo queues. And so on that note, I would definitely say that's important to really put into perspective, because you didn't have that in Dead by Daylight. There's no voice comm in Dead by Daylight. That is the only way that you can communicate with a teammate. That and 2 emotes. So I would have to say that for me personally, I would give my nomination to someone else, but it does not mean that Dead by Daylight also doesn't deserve at least a little nomination as well. So I would that's where I would put my take on it.
Don't worry, Behavior, you have my vote. You're a-okay.
Yeah. But
maybe next year, Behavior. Maybe next year.
I am hoping, because there have been signs that Behavior has been listening has been listening to a lot of much needed things, especially when it comes to quality of life improvements. Oh my god, have they been really on top of that. If they keep it up, then yes, they would get my vote next year, 100%. If they keep it up,
100%, yeah.
That is for sure. But again, that's from my own thing, and that's why I wanted to make this video, was to give people I guess expand more of their third eye to kind of understand what also is going around them in the world of Behavior Interactive and the world of Dead by Daylight, how it's a branch to a bigger company that has been making other games as well. And as you said, Muse, it has been branching into other forms of business titles, forms of other multimedia, other studios, expansions.
Right. It's acquiring other studios and businesses.
Exactly.
And it's an opportunity. If they have positions open, they can offer it to people and Behaviors. Like, hey, we're downsizing, but like we have acquired these studios. They have these type of positions open. You can see what's going on with that.
And that
but
goes
you can
into
stay in this industry.
Yeah, and that goes into what Muse. But what Lights has also stated is that in them spending that would also lead to them having to unfortunately cut some employees. Now, that's not unheard of in any business. When a business expands, they have to afford that new expansion. And if that means that they have to, unfortunately, lay off some workers, and this happens in the game industry extremely often, that is part of the unfortunate nature of business expansion, and that gets into a whole other thing. But that is also part of it. And I think overall, both of you guys have made not only really good points, but really constructive points of the larger thing that is revolving around DbD as a game versus, you know, Behavior Interactive as a company. And hopefully this will help people kind of understand, or at least appreciate, this game that they're so passionate about. We at the 3 of us included, and other people who are to be interviewed for this video, we are passionate about this game. We love this game. I don't think that goes without saying, you know. And if you don't love this game, that's perfectly okay, but you enjoy this game, great. but that goes into a lot. It still says that you support this game in some way. I personally, this game strikes a very different chord than I would say most players, but that gets really personal. But for people who are very passionate about the game because this game they enjoy, it means something to them. They like being part of the community that's analyzing the lore. They like being part of it for the understanding the mechanics of it, or putting down the numbers, or understanding the statistics. There are players like that all over the place, and that's what makes I feel Dead by Daylight not only bring in some new players, but stimulate the current player base. Like, that stuff stimulates the lifeblood of Dead by Daylight, and I believe in games in general. But that's what's keeping Dead by Daylight also in a stable thing, because once you get into Dead by Daylight, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go look for tutorial videos or lore videos, depending on what you want. And I think Dead by Daylight has a plethora of this kind of content. And
plenty of content creators with lots of information as far as whether it be funny, or how to loop, or how to kill, or how to play, or streaks. And there's a lot of available information out there.
Even for just an individual killer, like Lights knew more about Doctor than I did, and I don't know Doctor from jack shit. And when I would go up against Doctors, my performance got improving because I learned from Lights, and I couldn't have done that without the knowledge of someone who plays Doctor, and I wouldn't understand Cinnabite from someone who plays Cinnabite, Muse. So like that goes a lot. Like, even just like, hey, I'm a Cinnabite player, hey, I'm a Doctor player, that's still a niche for you as an individual in this game that people can go to if they too want to play these two killers, or they too want to learn cool strategies about said killer. Or if you're a variety gamer, there's plenty of that too. Me, I'm a Xeno player, so if I wanted to give you guys tips on Xenomorph, I would totally be open to making videos or talking about that too, because I know Xenomorph better than most. Even though I am a Survivor main, I know Xenomorph more because when I play killer, that's my first killer that I log on to play. But that being said, though, and all of us being so passionate about this, it's very important that we inform, or at least give a brighter range of knowledge about not only what we think, but also what needs to be known about what's happening around Dead by Daylight. And that our main point, yes, especially about this video, is that the labor of love is the development of Dead by Daylight and not behavior. Because behavior can do whatever they want with it. It's both not only their game, but they can do whatever the money they make from it. That's the reality of it. We don't have control about that as gamers. We don't. We are a consumer of Dead by Daylight, and we play their games, we buy their cosmetics, we make content on it promoting the game. That then, in turn, benefits not only those who promote the game, but also the people who make the product, which is behavior. Now, behavior can take that money, invest it either into what's making them money, or, again, whatever they're doing. And this goes back to what you both have stated about where you feel like personally that money should be going. But ultimately, we, of course, don't have control about that. But knowing that both of you are also basically on the same track of saying they should really kind of put their money more into slow down. I shouldn't even say stop. I should say slow down a lot of their pushes towards a lot of chapters and licenses, and come out with, I believe it was you who said this, Muse, is that a big update or a chapter dedicated to more of
quality of life and changes to the game itself. Like do a whole chapter that could introduce some really good quality of life update, bug balances, like changes to maybe some perks, like you did with the meta perk update, but make it its own thing. So we can do a couple hot fixes to see how it influences the game, and then introduce more newer content, because people are gonna still go on about old stuff that's happened with the game.
Yeah, and
we'll take that chapter to fix it.
Yeah, and I think you both are really on point with what honestly is more of a it's not even a biased concern or even a opinionated concern. Is that if we as players want a little bit more things slowed down and just some more improvements, as opposed in both communication and design versus content. Even though we enjoy the content and we're very grateful for it, because let's be honest, if we went back in the past, we would have laughed at the idea, oh, they're going to come out with Alien in the next couple of years. What? We would have laughed at it because there's no way. But now here we are. We live where Chucky exists. We live where Alien exists. We live where Cinnabite exists. We live
And yet
where
there's still no Jason.
and no Jason, but that's that's because some people just can't do stuff right in Hollywood.
I mean, let's be real. Like, what is Jason going to bring to this game, though, that they haven't already done?
Another trapper, a better trapper. What did you say last?
Discussion for another video.
Yeah, discussion for another video. Yes, that is.
So, a classic reminder for everyone that this is just a little debate discussion. All opinions are valid. We're all going to have different views on whether they do or do not deserve the award. So,
yeah,
keep it peaceful. There's no reason to get hostile over disagreements. It's all good here. We're having a nice civil conversation.
Yeah, and Lights, what would you like to say to that, actually?
Yeah, just like remember, we're all human, and just like Muse said, we all have our different opinions. We all have our like different levels of passion for this game. So let's not get carried away. Let's not start fights. Just remember, we're all human. Behavior's human, and this is just a friendly discussion to maybe just open up everyone's mind a little bit. I know I learned a lot more from Muse before coming into this that I really appreciate, like learning about, and like made me very thoughtful towards them being deserving of the award. And like Wraith said about the two of us, the same. So yeah, just hope this just was a nice listen to. We're all friends still, I hope.
Yes, we are. I'm pretty sure. If not, I'm more passionate about having you guys as fellow gamers. So.
And yeah, don't forget to hydrate.
Oh yeah, don't forget to hydrate, especially these days. Oh my goodness. Lord knows I'm gonna need a nice Smirnoff after this. I'm kidding. I'm a lightweight. I do plan on doing a drunk stream, at least at some point, probably for a celebration someday. So yeah, look forward to that. Muse.
Look for that on wraith.ttv.
Yes.
/Twitter.
Yes, and I will be linking both of your guys' socials also down below. So if you guys want any of the Lights, I will put your Twitch down below as well. Muse, I will also put any information that you want down below, so just be sure to send that to me. But
you just put the Twitch down there.
Just the Twitch? All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So any last other few words before we wrap this part up? I mean, I know that we've said a bit of our closing statements, but is there like an ultimate one you guys want to really tie with a bow?
I still stand behind Labor Love going to Dead by Daylight, but I'm happy for whoever gets the award because it's prestigious. Steam Award to really get. It shows a lot on the development of the game as community. So I'm happy, I know who I want to win, but I'm happy for whoever does actually get the award itself too, because there's a lot of other deserving games.
Nice.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right, sounds good. So thank you both so much.